Roderick Moore, and today we're going to be talking about The Book Thief, a book where Death has a personality, and he isn't dark or grim at all. Mr. Moore, I thought Death was a Grim Reaper figure who was deceitful and loved the idea of death. No, not in this book. Death plays a major role, as well as other characters. Let's see what our topics are for today. This is the introduction segment, where we'll talk about what the book is about. Then we'll discuss some characters and their characterization. And finally, we'll go on my favorite segment called Crucial Themes. So we know our topics, let's head to the thought bubble and see what this story is all about. The Book Thief, narrated by Death, follows the story of Liesel Miminger, a 9-year-old German girl who was put into foster care by her mother to live with Hans and Russell Huberman in the small town of Woking in 1939. This is just before World War II, and shortly before Germany invaded Poland and decided to confiscate Jewish property and force Jews into labor camps. Liesel, on her way to Woking, has her younger brother die, which makes Liesel traumatized for months. But Hans, a very kind man, brings her comfort and helps her learn to read. Starting with a book Liesel took from the cemetery where her brother was buried. Soon Liesel befriends a neighborhood boy, Rudy Steiner, who falls in love with her and becomes her best friend. All along the way, in this dark World War II period, Death follows Liesel, Hans, and Rudy very closely, developing their characteristics and forming crucial themes. Mr. Moore, who are these characters, and what do you mean by crucial themes? I'll explain that right now. Now, who is Liesel, and what makes her, well, her? Major characteristics that make Liesel is her speech, actions, relationships, motivations, and emotions. Liesel's speech in the book is very mellow, and she speaks her mind a lot. Her speech is also tainted by the rhetoric of this time period. An example of this derives from this quote. The sound of another student struggling in the hallway was not particularly enjoyable, but the fact that it was someone else was, if not a true comfort, a relief. This dialogue from Liesel shows a lot about her character, and a lot about the beliefs of others in this time period, in which mostly everyone cared about themselves. And if you were not getting hurt, then thank goodness. Now, this shouldn't diminish the good morality of a character Liesel is, because her actions speak louder than words. Let's see an example of this. This example is, she didn't care about the food. Rudy, no matter how hard she tried to resist the idea, was secondary to her plan. It was the book she wanted, The Whistler. She wouldn't tolerate having it given to her by a lonely, pathetic old woman. Stealing it, on the other hand, seemed a little more acceptable. Stealing it, in a sick kind of sense, was like earning it. This shows the complexity of Liesel and the dynamics between her actions. Liesel's actions change at one point. She decided to steal food, but now she wants to steal books from the neighbor's library. This shows that Liesel's urge and desire for reading gets in front of her morals as a relatively good person. But how is Liesel's relationship with others? Liesel is invested in her relationship with others and cares about the people she loves. An example of this is, "Come on," his whisper played with her. "Think of Mama." Hans shows that Liesel has a very good depth and understanding of what's going around her. Liesel doesn't have a single emotion, but many emotions that makes up her characterization. Example of Liesel's emotions is, once, words had rendered Liesel useless, but now she felt an innate sense of power. It happened every time she deciphered a new word or pieced together a sentence. Liesel felt powerful after discovering a new word. Liesel knew enough to realize that words had power. This drive of learning new words empowered her, and it became her #1 motivation. A quote about Liesel and her motivation is, "As for the girl, there was a sudden desire to read it that she didn't even attempt to understand." Liesel's main focus and motivation that made her is her passion to learn how to read and write. This now leads to Rudy. Rudy is a dynamic character, and he is Liesel's best friend. Now, Rudy's speech is a bit more in-depth and personal to him. An example of this is, "All those priests," Rudy explained as they walked through town. "They're all too fat anyway. They could do without a feed for a week or so." Rudy's character is shown very clearly through showing that his speech is very multi-dimensional. Rudy doesn't hold back when describing and shows dynamicy when talking to people. Rudy often speaks just before he does an action, and in his actions his true character derives. An example of this is Rudy passed Liesel the bag. Take a handful, he slapped some bread into her palm. How could she argue? It was worth a whipping. If we're fast, we won't get caught. The context of this quote is Rudy made a plan to sneak bread to some Jews. Rudy's dynamic character is shown through his love and kindness towards people even though he could get in trouble. Rudy is a selfless person who is very multidimensional and outgoing, as seen in this quote. Rudy cares about other people, maybe a little too deeply. An example of this relationship is How About a Kiss? He stood waist deep in the water for a few moments longer before climbing out and handing her the book. Rudy loves Liesel, and he is very motivated to be the bestest friend he can be for her. This example being, at school, Rudy made a special point of seeking Liesel out during the breaks. He didn't care that others made noises about the new girl's stupidity. This being said, Rudy went out of his way to seek Liesel out and being with her. This is what true friendship is about. Rudy's emotions also fester from Liesel. He must have loved her so incredibly hard. So hard that he would never ask for her lips again and would go to his grave without them. Rudy was an emotional character who through his emotions showed his true character, this being a boy who cares about others, who stands up to the bullies and loves and cares about his friends. This leads to our final character, Hans, possibly the most important one in the story. Now Hans is a dynamic character because he changes throughout the story. Hans' personality is shown mainly through his comforting words and actions he does no matter the cost or penalty. An example of his speech is, he came in every night and sat with her. The first couple of times, he simply stayed. A stranger to kill the aloneness. A few nights after that, he whispered, "Shh, I'm here, it's alright." Hans' speech shows that he has feelings and cares for his foster daughter, Liesel. He, every night, made sure that she was okay, adding newness to his previous character, where he didn't do that at all because he had no children at his house. Hans' actions also make up the character he is, because he is willing to help anyone. An example is Hans giving bread to a Jewish man being paraded in the street. Hans' character depth increases and shows through his generosity towards the Jewish man. His character also shows through when his generosity gets in the way of the safety of his family, resulting in later Hans having to go to the army due to this. Because of his actions, his relationships are deep-rooted, and he has a great connection with the peoples closest to him. "Come on," his whisper played with her. "Think of Mama." That was when the words struck her in the face like a slap, a reflex grin. This dialogue between Hans and Liesel shows that Hans has depth and understanding of what's around him. Hans doesn't have a single emotion, but many emotions, adding to his characterization. Hans is a very motivated person and is motivated by helping people. Hans Huberman held his hand out and presented a piece of bread. Motivation is shown through this quote because he is selfless and gives a Jew who is hiding in his basement a piece of bread. Hans' final characterization element is his emotions. An example of this is, "I hate the Führer," she said. "I hate him." And Hans Huberman, what did he do? What did he say? Did he bend down and embrace his foster daughter as he wanted to? Did he tell her that he was sorry for what was happening to her mother, for what happened to her brother? Not exactly. He clenched his eyes, then opened them, and then he slapped Liesel Meminger squarely in the face. This passage/conversation is extremely important, because Liesel saying such a thing within the hearing of the wrong person could mean a death sentence. This also shows that Hans truly cares about his daughter and loves her like his own. Mr. Moore, what are the themes in this book? Well, I'm glad you asked. Now we're on to our last segment, the crucial theme segment, where we'll speed through the most important themes. These themes being is friendship, family relationships, love and sacrifice, and morality. Friendship. Now, friendship is very relevant and concurrent in this book. The main theme is friends stand up for each other and support one another through the highs and lows of life. A prime example of this, as we said before, was Liesel and Rudy. Rudy stood beside Liesel no matter what and stood up for her when nobody would. Now, family relationships. Liesel was abandoned by her biological family and taken in by Hans and his wife. This main theme for this is the bond between family members helps grow and make up the person you are today. Hans and his mentoring of Liesel made her the reader, the writer, and the spunky characteristics she had all throughout the book. Now, love and sacrifice. Love and sacrifice is a theme in this book due to the time period it occurs in. This is the most important theme in the book. This theme being, love is expressed by sacrificing your life for the benefit of others. Throughout the book, this is shown by the most prime example of this is when Hans gave the Jew some bread, sacrificing his life for a person he didn't even know. Our final theme for today is morality. Morality is our last theme in our theme analysis segment, and this theme dominates the outcomes of the events that happen in this book. The theme that interlocks with morality is doing what you know is right and good hinders the darkness and helps spread the light of kindness. In this book, this is shown through Hans giving the Jew some bread, Hans helping Liesel to read, and Hans welcoming a stranger into his home. Hans knew the consequences of his choices, but he knew that spreading the light of kindness was worth the risk. Oh, we're at the conclusion already? Well, this was The Book Thief, a characterization and theme analysis. I hope you enjoyed. Wait, Mr. Moore! What happens at the end of the book? You just have to read it and find out for yourself.